What's up, guys? I hope you're doing great. I hope you enjoy the apparent sun radiating all over my Washington Nationals t-shirt. Go Nats. I hope you guys are having a great day so far. I wanted to make this live. Guys, I haven't gone live in a hot second, in a while. I apologize that it's been so long. I miss you guys. And I hope that you've been enjoying the content and the videos that have been coming out on the channel here over the last month or so. This is the last time that I hopped on with you. But I'm back here in the States for a couple of weeks, so I thought that I would make you a video. And I was asking people, what do you want to hear about right now? What would you like? Especially because it's the summertime here, and it's right after people have hopefully got accepted to graduate school, or it's that really nerve-wracking time where you're thinking to yourself, hey, in terms of getting into graduate school, kind of what can I do right now? But there's some people who they've gotten into graduate school and maybe they did get some funding to be able to go, or maybe they weren't so lucky to be able to get any scholarships, and there's a minimal amount of funding available for GA-ships, meaning graduate assistantships, TA-ships, and so forth. And so because of that, have one of my amazing summer interns, Abdul Rahman, asked me a question. And he's awesome. You guys would love him. And Brian is the man as well. So shout out to both of them. So Abdul Rahman's question was this. I kind of wrote it out to be able to read it. And then I made a whole bunch of notes for you guys for me to be able to kind of give you guys my thoughts. So Abdul Rahman is going to be starting his doctoral degree at University of Minnesota. I'm super proud of him because that's really exciting. So let's go ahead. And hey, guys who are just joining us, it's wonderful to see you. Say hey in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're watching this on replay, say hi down there in the comments below. I'd love to say hi back. And you guys know I always try to say hi back. So here we go. This is the question for today. I have so many thoughts for navigating academia, but I'm going to be selfish today. As you know, and this is Abdul Rahman saying this, as you know, I am currently applying for jobs. So please make a live stream in which you talk about job hunting best strategies for people who are going to graduate school. How to connect with people to get a job, how to craft a winning resume and cover letter, and how to keep a good attitude despite the long waits and consistent rejections. Ryan, what's up, man? And consistent rejections. A lot of international students struggle to find jobs in the United States, and it's a hot topic for them. I'm sure you already spoke about these topics in different videos, but you can tailor that content specifically for international non-native English seekers. Surprisingly, I don't have that many videos on this, so I figured I wouldn't tailor it for anybody. We'll talk about things that are true for everybody here right over the next 30 to 45 minutes. Okay, so Abdul Rahman says, I will certainly watch that live stream. So I swear to God, Abdul Rahman, if you're not watching this live stream right now, what are you doing? All right, so many of my international friends will also be thrilled to watch. So if anybody enjoys this live stream, make sure that you copy and paste the link to it to any of your friends and family who find themselves in this predicament. You guys know as well as I do that graduate school is not just insanely expensive at times in terms of tuition, but also even if the tuition is waived, there's so many other expenses that you got to consider. You got to pay for rent. You got to pay for utilities. You got to pay for furnishings. You got to pay for travel and transport. Gas is redonkulous, especially where I am. I don't know about you guys, redonkulous in terms of the prices. I paid, easily over $50 at the petrol station the other day. It blew my mind. And just, costs of daily living, activities of daily living. Sorry, we need shampoo. Am I right? So it's one of those things where there's a lot of costs that go into this. And usually, at least in the United States, a lot of people, they unfortunately have to end up getting significant student loans. And I'm not a huge believer in debt, but I know for a lot of people, that's the only thing they can really do. So a lot of people, you may find yourself in this position. Abdul Rahman finds himself in this position. He wants to be able to fund his life and possibly also help to be able to fund tuition using a job, right? And so what I've tried to do is to be able to come up with kind of 8 big points that I want to make about this topic. So if you see me looking down, it's just because I got my notes here, okay? So in no particular order, let's just get on this subject. And if you guys have questions or if you're looking for a job right now, please, again, let me know in the comments. I'd love to be able to hear from you. So first thing when it comes to finding a job is to be able to work the problem backwards. And when I say work the problem backwards, what I mean is that it's great to be able to say, yeah, I want a job. I'm open. I'm open to anything. Just, give me some advice, just anything, whatever the universe provides to me, that's great. But I want you to be very intentional about this because usually in terms of getting a job, there's some kind of an outcome that we're looking for. And especially if you're going to be going into graduate school, usually finances is the most important part of that. I usually ask people questions, financially speaking, in terms of saying, "Hey, how much money would you like to make here?" And the honest answer, let's be honest with each other, right? The honest answer is as much as possible. But realistically speaking, there is only so much that when I say you can demand, I don't mean you specifically. I mean that anybody with your skill set, your experience level, and so forth, and your geography can demand on the open market, right? So, and this gets a little bit into number two, but I want to stick on number one for right now, is to be able to work the problem backwards. How much money are you actually looking to be able to earn, and why? What specifically are you looking to be able to fund with this money you're going to get from this job? And be reasonable here. Really think about it. When you're working it backwards, how many hours, practically speaking, during the week can you actually spend on a job? The likelihood that you're going to be working full time, 8 to 10 hours a day, and also going to graduate school full time. I know people who have done it. It is a recipe for disaster in terms of burnout. You know that as well as I do. People still do it, and God bless you, seriously, because it's really hard to be able to cash flow this kind of thing. But, right, if you think about this is how many hours I have, right? And then we move on to my second point here, which is what are your truly exceptional skills? Okay, number one. Next is what are they worth on the open market? And if I am an employer, I'm sure you can agree with me, right? If I'm an employer, I want the most skilled and most impressive candidates in terms of their experience for as cheap as I can get them, right? Every employer will say the exact same thing. Now, you get what you pay for at the end of the day, but at the same time, right now the job market is really, really weird, right? And there are a lot of people who are, looking for jobs, looking for work. So let's say, for example, Abdul Rahman, he's very talented when it comes to copy editing, has a lot of experience in copy editing. It's a wonderful skill to have, and certainly an in-demand skill to have, right? And you know as well as I do that it's certainly something where a lot of people, in terms of their academic writing, not the best. What can I say, right? I've been doing this for 19 years. A lot of people, not the best. Even people you'd expect to be exceptional, not the best. The issue is, though, right, that even if you're a truly exceptional copy editor, right, how much is that skill set worth? The problem is that there's a lot of demand for that kind of a skill. And because of that, there are what we refer to as incumbents. And incumbents means that there is a large number, a vast array of services, not just individuals, but entire companies that do nothing but copy editing. And these folks, let's be honest, they pay like a pittance because there's so many providers, right? And because of that, it's something where, unfortunately, if you go to a company and say, hey, I've got 3 years of copy editing experience, right? I've worked on all these sorts of different manuscripts, so on and so forth, and I would love to be able to work for you as well. And they'll say, wow, this is a really impressive resume. Okay, so in terms of copy editing, how much are you going to charge an hour? And the thing is because there's so many service providers, right? Because there's a lot of demand, but then there's a lot of supply. What ends up happening is that they honestly will not pay you that much. And that's a problem. If it's something where it's copy editing from one language to another. So for example, let's just say that you speak Arabic, right? Or you speak Turkish, or, my partner, she's Ukrainian, she speaks Russian and Ukrainian, right? And you're amazingly fluent, right? When it comes to both, let's just say Ukrainian and English, right? And then you've got a colleague in Ukraine who says, geez, I really want this thing written really perfectly in English. Ukrainian isn't a language that people are speaking in 50 countries. You may be really in demand. In other words, you may not just be exceptional at what you do, but you are so hyper niched. This is an area where I think that a lot of people don't think about this enough. They do not niche themselves sufficiently. Why? Because they think to themselves, yeah, but Dr. Singh, if I niche myself too much, then I'm going to miss out on all these opportunities. People talk to me all the time about building a private practice. If that's something you want to talk about, set up a session, let's talk about it, right? If you end up in a situation where you start a practice, a lot of people are like, I want to focus on everything. I want to stay 10,000 foot. In terms of your website, I focus on anxiety. I focus on depression. I focus on substance abuse disorders, right? Everything pie in the sky, right? So generic, right? But what happens is that there is so much competition for each of those different sectors, especially if you're younger or you're a junior professional. You can be 50 years old. Maybe you're new in the field. God bless, right? In that kind of a situation, though, you need to really stand out and hyper niche yourself. Start here and then expand out. Don't start out here. You're barely going to get any customers, right? So same thing. If you have an exceptional skill, you're really great, like in our example here of copy editing, hyper niche yourself, right? And then look for opportunities that fit that hyper niche. Okay, that is my first two kind of pieces here. Very, very important. But always remember that at the end of the day, we're trying to sell ourselves and our skill sets to someone else. So if we're trying to do that, we always need to think about the employer perspective and not what we want. We want, I mean, let's be honest, we want as much money as we can get, right? As fast as we can get it for as little work as we can do. Let's just be honest, right? I think that's not how things work, right? But that'd be nice. But at the end of the day, if we think about what can I do, how can I bring the most value possible, right, for my potential employer, right? So for example, Brian, amazing summer intern, love Brian. Brian's so hardworking, right? So for Brian, something that we're focused on, him and I, for this summer, for him is essentially focusing on developing and acquiring skill sets that are hugely in demand in academia that very few people have. People learn how to be able to write journal articles. People learn how to be able to write book proposals and edited book chapters and conference presentations. You know what people don't do is they don't learn how to be able to take a published research article and then translate it into a policy brief or an evidence brief or a podcast episode or a digital newsletter article or a blog post. People suck at that. And they certainly don't know how to be able to use social media properly to be able to disseminate research findings. So if you come along and you just say, hey, listen, I know how to publish. I got experience in publishing a few pieces and these sorts of things. But in terms of what I can bring to you is I can help you to be able to amplify your voice, amplify the return on investment of the stuff that you're already publishing. You're already publishing it. Let's just make sure that we can basically get you as much feedback, not as much feedback, as much exposure as possible. Let me write a press release for you. And for every press release, pay me $50, right? And these sorts of things really end up, like I said, amplifying the voices of current researchers. Maybe that's the skill set that you've got, especially if you want to get into graduate school, developing those types of niche skills that can really help your supervisor and your lab significantly. OMG, this is a great way to be able to go. So that's what Brian and I are focusing on, and we're using Publication Academy modules to do it. So if you want to learn any of those skill sets, publicationacademy.com. Find the modules that you want to take in terms of those skill sets and shoot me an email, okay? So those are skill sets 1 and 2. The third recommendation or points 1 and 2. Number 3 is to connect with headhunters. Abdul Rahman and I spoke about this probably a couple of weeks ago. And this is something that people, again, really don't think too much about. Is the idea that headhunters, these are firms, their job is to be able to basically match people with employers. Employers come to them and pay a boatload of money because they say, hey, listen, these are the qualifications I'm looking for. I'm looking for this kind of person with these kinds of skills, with this kind of background, right? And then essentially people go to these headhunters and say, hey, I'm this kind of person with these skill sets, these credentials. Here's my CV. This is what I'm looking for, right? And the matchmaker's job, i.e. the headhunter, right, is to be able to match you together. That's the idea, right? So that's literally, and there's huge headhunting firms, right? Go online, type in headhunting firms near me. Go on to LinkedIn, type in, top headhunter, chief headhunter, these things, and then your sector. Are you in IT? Are you in computer science? Are you in electrical engineering? Whatever it happens to be, and see whether or not there's anybody out there that you can connect with, have a 15-minute Zoom call, right? And so they have your data, okay? Something that a lot of people don't know about me, right? So I used to be the CEO of a matchmaking, like a dating firm in Washington, D.C., right? A few years ago, I sold the first company. I wanted to do something fun, right? I was in my early 30s. I wanted to do something fun. So I started and I grew this company. I ended up selling that company as well. And that was a great experience. I absolutely loved it. And at the end of the day, this is exactly like matchmaking. That's what it is. You're basically you're serving as that in-between, right? Between two different valuable sources in this case, right? The employer and the employee, okay? And this is the exact same thing that these headhunters are doing. They're out there, but people just don't take that step to be able to go and reach out to them. And let me tell you, the fact that you are going and talking to them, it shows a lot of initiative. Right? An initiative is something that people always want to see. It's very valuable to have that in an employee. Okay. By the way, guys, those of you who are watching, howdy, make sure to say hi in the chat. Make sure to like the video as well because it helps with the algorithm. Okay. So that's what I would say. Fourth point I want to make is a lot of times when people are looking for jobs, they don't really remember that they should tell people that they're looking for jobs. Now, I don't recommend going and tell your graduate school supervisor where you're about to enter graduate school that you're applying for a job. I don't recommend doing that, right? People are very territorial. They want to make sure that you're spending all of your time with them on their projects, so on and so forth. But make sure, if nothing else, that you let your friends and your family, and especially your mentors who you know, like, and trust, who know, like, and trust you, make sure that they know that you're looking for a job. Make sure that they know the kind of job that you're looking for. Not only can they keep an eye out for you, but it's very likely that at the end of the day, they're going to ask the employer, possible employer, is going to ask for letters of recommendation, right? And I want to make sure that you guys have people who can write those letters of recommendation for you, okay? So that's number 4. Number 5, we're talking about copy editing earlier. If you do happen to be someone whose first language is not English, and let's say that you are in a country where the native language is English, there's no problem at all getting a copy editor, right? Again, you can get them pretty cheap. I'm telling you, just go to Upwork or Fiverr or Freelancer. You can find folks who are happy to be able to do that kind of work for you. Yes, you can definitely go to places like career services and such if you're still an undergraduate somewhere. Maybe you're a master's student transitioning to a doctoral program. There's all sorts of different resources that are available, but I do recommend seeing a copy editor. Just like going to therapy is a very healthy thing for everyone, because I'm a psychologist, remember? Everybody's got trauma from their childhood and all, right. At the same time, in terms of copy editing, everybody can use an external set of eyes. So if you have to pay for it, God bless, you can do that, okay? Number 6 is to be able to, and I really do see a tremendous amount of value in this, is to hire an objective and blunt external reviewer, right? This is why I'm a huge believer in coaching and consultation, right? You guys know me. I do coaching and consultation literally every day. So if anybody wants to use me as this objective and blunt person, feel free. www.jphoenixing.com. It's down in the description box of every video that I do. You need somebody who's experienced, but more importantly, somebody who has a track record of producing positive outcomes to be able to look at your materials, right? And to just be super blunt with you in a constructive sense. Okay, if somebody looks at your stuff and it's just like, God, this is a terrible cover letter, right? Or your CV is ugly as sin, that's not very constructive, right? But if they say, God, I looked at your CV and man, that needs some work. Okay, take a look. So here are the 3 things we need to change. Number 1 is that the formatting is not good right now, right? So here's how we're going to change it to be able to make it more beautiful, right? In terms of the cover letter, it is totally unstructured, right? We got to put a skeleton right together so that we can take all that great meat that you've got and we can organize it properly, right? You need somebody who's blunt like that, who's not going to tell you necessarily what you want to hear. They're not going to blow smoke and tell you that you're God's gift. They're just going to be honest with you, and they're going to tell you the truth and say, hey, listen, this needs to get worked on. Okay. Most people don't do that. And at the end of the day, they only listen to parents and friends who are going to, blow smoke and tell them that they're amazing and that they're going to get rejected from every job offer. That's not great, right? You want somebody who can be really, really honest with you, and you can be honest with them in terms of your fears and anything about this entire process, because it is stressful, especially in this day and age where you have so many applicants per job. I mean, you guys know how it is just applying to grad school. It takes freaking forever, right? So to be able to fund it, to be able to get a job, to be able to do that, also very stressful. So, Berthany, am I pronouncing your name right? That's such a cool name. I haven't heard that one before. That's super cool. Am I pronouncing it right? Is it like Anthony, except it's Berthany? You can tell me. I'm watching the chat. You can tell me. Okay, very cool. Please do say hi, guys. I love you. All right. So that's what I would say. So hire an objective and blunt external reviewer who is experienced in producing positive outcomes. Don't just hire somebody because you got to hire somebody, right? Get somebody who's got positive outcomes under their belt, please. Okay, next one. This is the painful one. There's always a painful one, guys. Right? The painful one is be realistic, right? We got to focus on probability and not possibility, right? Somebody kept commenting on one video a couple weeks ago, and the comments essentially like in the thread, and then eventually I just stopped responding to it. I get exhausted, right? I don't like discussing things that are ridiculous. So the person was saying that they're like a graduate student and like their graduate assistantship is paying like, he's a graduate assistant, but he's making over $100,000. I'm like, okay, I'm assuming is wrong information, or if it's correct information, then that's awesome and good for that person. But you can't assume that that's normal, even if you're at the same institution and you're the same year in these things. That's a total unicorn situation. But of course, the individual who was commenting, really didn't want to hear that. And it's like, okay, peace. Right. But the thing is, again, probability, not possibility, right? And it's really important to be able to figure that out. My recommendation, you guys have heard me say in other videos, is to be able to go to places like here in the US, Bureau of Labor Statistics, whatever that national database is in terms of public data that your country has got, to be able to take a look at the median and the average amount of income, right, from a full-time position for any kind of career field, whatever it is, whether it's being a housekeeper or being a mechanical engineer. Take a look at it. One error that people make all the time is they take a look at that data, and usually there's something in there about like percentiles and this kind of stuff. But the thing is that very rarely do people take years of experience into consideration. So they'll see that like the median or the average income for, let's just say, a psychologist is, let's just say, $110,000. Okay, the issue there, and that's great, but the issue there, and I don't know if that number is correct or not right now. So, all right, and so the issue, right, in terms of timing, is that. It's like how to say, right? So the issue with that is that you in those statistics have people who just started, right, in terms of their career. And then you also have people who've been doing the career for 50 years and their data is aggregated, right? And that's how this information is kind of getting out there, right? In terms of that's how these graphs are getting constructed, and that's how these measures of central tendency and dispersion, like averages and standard deviations and medians and interquartile ranges, that's how these things are getting established, right? So don't think that if you take a look at a job and it seems to be paying way more than certain people are offering right now, right, that's necessarily some unreasonable thing, or that you're getting shafted because of that, right? It's just not the case, right? But be realistic. Be realistic with how much money you actually need. Be realistic with everybody, including myself. We always think that our skills are better than they are, right? So realistically, if we look at ourselves from an outside perspective, there's something called forced distancing. And it's a debiasing technique when you write about yourself. But instead of saying I, you say you, or you use a pronoun. So for me, I would say like he, da, 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 he has this credential, he has that credential. You can look at things more objectively than if you say, I have this credential, I have that credential. So forced distancing can be helpful, but just get a sense of realistically how much money can your current skill set and your current geography with your current level of education, so forth, and the number of hours that you can realistically work, how much money can you make, right? Like that's the question there. Keep in mind that especially if it's something where you're just trying to cash flow certain things in your life, you do not need to like do the thing that you love the most. It's cool if you drive Uber. It's cool if you deliver pizza. Any of these things, right? We're not talking about like get the bag by going and delivering for Domino's, okay? I have friends who drove for Domino's for years when they were doing their postdoc and these things to be able to get some supplemental income. They made great money in terms of tips, right? It's all about what you do with that money. Just remember, guys, that in life, especially in terms of finances, realistically, there's like three levers, right? The first lever is that you can earn more, right? The second is that you can cut costs, spend less effectively, right? And the third one is in terms of the income that you're making. When I say save more of it, what I mean is like pay less money in taxes, right? And I don't mean that by like defrauding like here in the US, like the IRS, right? Finding ways to be able to essentially get tax credits, find ways to be able to get tax deductions, submit an itemized return and so forth, right? Be strategic with it and keep more of the money that you're already making, okay? That's the equivalent of making more money, okay? So those are the three levers, practically speaking, that you can pull. Guys, it's one of my most joyous things is when I do have consult sessions with you guys and we get a chance to talk about finances. And we get a chance to talk about cash flowing things, or what's a reasonable amount of debt to be able to take on for grad school? How can I pay it off successfully? That financial planning and budgeting is a real joy for me as somebody who, I'm going to be straight up with you, I was financially incompetent until my late 20s, early 30s, right? And it's just not something I ever learned. Right. And I always recommend to people to take a finance class, to be able to take an accounting class. Doesn't matter whether or not they plan on starting a company or working in finance or accounting. It's a very useful life skill, right? Even on YouTube. I mean, you can get all this knowledge for free these days. I think it's wonderful. But if you ever want one-on-one guidance, obviously we can talk about it. Like I said, description box, any of my trainings, link for my website, book sessions talk. Okay. And also, guys, if there's any time that there's not like a time on there that works for you, please just send me an email, right? And we can find a time. Okay. So finally is how to keep a positive attitude. Okay. So again, I would say, be practical in terms of those three different levers that you can pull, right? By the way, everybody just joined us. Much love. Great to see you guys. Make sure to hit the like button. Helps the algorithm to be able to, get the message out to more people. It's something that I always say, and this, I remember the first time somebody told me this, and it was so rough to like hear it when I was in graduate school, but it was really sound advice, right? And especially as like a young man, I went to grad school as 2021, right? And I moved to England and I was at Oxford. I mean, I thought I was the man, if you know what I'm saying. I thought I was the ish, right? And I was a 21-year-old young man with like long hair who wore fingerless gloves and was the lead singer in an alternative rock band, right? I mean, I was a totally different dude. Inside my head, still have the hair, but from the outside, not bad with the ball, kind of all about it. But the thing is that what I was told by a senior graduate student is that the most important thing you can learn in graduate school is how to suffer well. And at first I was like, holy shit, like that's some intense stuff. But the more that my graduate career went on, remember I ended up doing 2 doctorates and a postdoc before starting my formal career in academia. There is a hell of a lot of truth to that, right? And this is the same thing in terms of applying for a lot of positions and finding ourselves getting humbled by not getting the positions that we want, or thinking that we should earn more than we do, or feeling that people who shouldn't get the job over us, but maybe they've got personal connections and all these sorts of things, they're the ones who end up getting those positions, and we deem it to be fundamentally unfair and unjust. To see these things happen and to go through the natural emotional roller coaster that you're going to go through is valuable. There is value in that pain that you feel, right? Just like like going to the gym. I got calluses. You probably can't see, but like calluses from lifting, right? Those calluses, after a while, they not only make you stronger, they make you more effective at lifting, and you feel less pain over time. Life is something. There's a lot of disappointment, right? There's a lot of suffering. Period. We all know that, right? And certainly you find that in graduate school and in academia in general. You find a lot of nepotism. You find people in cliques and this kind of stuff, right? Kind of sucks. But if you can find a way to be able to handle that stress and that strain and to sublimate it into helping other people and helping yourself, there is meaning in that, right? So for example, in terms of, how to be able to keep a positive attitude, obviously practice gratitude. You can do journaling. There's a lot of things to be able to do. I personally find that spending a lot of time volunteering helps me a lot, mostly because I get so wrapped up in my own bullshit, right? In terms of me thinking that like my problems are so grandiose and, oh, woe is me, look at all these challenges, and waiting for this visa process to end, and looking for Daria and I to start a life in the States and these sorts of things. It's just exhausting. It is exhausting. And so it's one of these things where for me to be able to kind of keep my head straight on me, it's a good thing to be able to essentially volunteer a lot. I work at a food shelter when I can. My church does a lot of great outreach stuff. I love making these videos for you. I love talking to you. I love these live streams because you feel like you're giving something back. And every now and again, somebody ends up contacting you and says, wow, that really helped. I'm going through a really tough time. And they tell you what they're going through. And honestly, it helps a lot. It helps a lot to know that, oh my God, like not only am I not alone, but other people are going through this, and maybe I can be a positive influence on them as well. It's a beautiful thing, right? So that's what I would say in terms of keeping a positive attitude. Just don't isolate yourself, right? Be around other people, both in the same situation and maybe in a situation that you already know is more challenging than your own. Go work at a food pantry and so forth, and you'll see it for yourself. So that's the advice that I've got, guys, in terms of job hunting and such. If anybody has any questions, I'll hang out for another few minutes, for let's just say 3 minutes here, right? To be able to see if anybody has any questions. And if there's a lot of questions or more than 1 or 2, I'll stay around for as long as you guys want. And it doesn't have to be about this topic. But does anybody have any questions? I'm going to get a drink real quick. Any questions, guys? Cheers to you guys. Okay. Melissa. Hey, Melissa. All right. So Melissa's asking, you may have already covered this. I came late, Melissa. But can a PhD graduate student work full time? It's a great, hey, it's a great question. So yeah, so we chatted about this a little bit earlier, Melissa, but like the long and short of it is that theoretically speaking, you can. It's obviously something where like the risk of burnout is pretty substantial. It also depends where in the graduate process you are. So if you're in a PhD program, year one would be the best time to do that and try to stack up some cash, because year two is like the shit gets real year. And then all of a sudden it's like, when I say a downward spiral, what I mean is that, you know, you're going into Dante's circles of hell to the point where you're finishing the dissertation, right? So as much work you can do before getting started or in year one, that's going to be your sweet spot to be able to, you know, do some work and work full time. It is something where, in my opinion, ethically, if you're going to do a full-time job and not just do something on the side or like a side hustle or, you know, flipping couches, you know, whatever people do these days, the yard sales, you should talk to your supervisor about and explain the situation. They may even say, hey, listen, like I've got some additional funding. If you want to do like a few additional things for me, I can throw you some cash, right? Or, hey, listen, there are some opportunities actually to be able to get some, you know, doctoral level, you know, funding through NSF, through NIH, through DOD, and so forth. Why don't we apply for something together? Because I really don't want you to burn out. I really want you to focus on this, and that'll also help your future career as a future PhD, right? So I would just be really, really open and honest about it if it's something where you really do need the money, right? But side hustles and these things, I think that you're fine. Just don't let it impact the PhD. Just remember, Melissa, at the end of the day, the goal of the PhD is to get the hell out of the PhD program. That's it. That's the goal, right? Get out of there, right? And usually these programs are going to take anywhere between 4 to 7 years, at least in the States, depends on the country, right? And so because of that, you know, you can kind of think about, I was talking to a wonderful person today who she essentially has about 1,000 days. She got 3 years, about 1,000 days left in the PhD, right? And that's really stressful. It feels like it's never going to end. It feels like, what am I going to do after it and so forth, right? But the thing is that if we are working full time, just the way that, you know, our biology is that we're not going to be able to focus just as well on grad school as well as on the job. One of them is going to suffer. And frankly, the job is what should suffer. Get out of that doctoral program as fast as you can. Start your life. Any debt that you build up, try to take care of it as fast as possible in terms of those levers we were talking about. Spend less, make more, be tax efficient. Let's get rid of that student loan debt, and then you're going to be okay. So does that help, Melissa, I hope, a little bit? Awesome. All right, guys. Let's see. Oh, for the love of God, after you're accepted, do not bring that up for real. Do not bring that up before admission. Red flag, red flag, red flag. Rejection stamp, 99%. For real. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay. But because I'm assuming, because you're asking the question in terms of, you know, before admission, I'm assuming that you haven't been admitted yet, which isn't a bad thing, right? Yeah, you won't. I'm assuming that that's the case. And that's not a bad position to be in, because you can start kind of that financial planning now versus later. It's not a bad thing. Scary topic, I know, but it is what it is. So, all right, Melissa, have a great night. Guys, so great to see everybody. I am going to go downstairs and chill for a while. It's been a long day, but I will talk to you very soon. Peace.